Well, welcome everybody. It is 10 o'clock, so I think we'll go ahead and make a start. As you can likely see on your screen, we are recording today's webinar. We'll also put the slides and the recording in the Mustang Bulletin should you wish to look at it later. We're going to start on time, as I say, at 10 o'clock and finish at 11, if not before, depending how many questions we get from you all. Just a reminder that our Mustang Connections are our way of connecting with you about events in the middle school. We hope, plenty of time for questions and answers, whether the questions are about the content of today's presentation or anything at all to do with life in the middle school. And we hope to share with you some fun things that we're doing. You'll also be aware of our Parent Partnerships program, and we've been advertising in the Mustang Bulletin, the Positive Discipline Parenting series, which is coming up soon. And Amy Brent, who you see on the call, is involved with that, and it's really wonderful support for parents. So keep your eye out for that. Today we are going to be talking about deep learning and what is deep learning in the middle school. We have some information to share with you, and we're eager to hear your feedback about our description of deep learning and how helpful it is for you. And we'll also share some examples of students who are engaging in deep learning, particularly through the lens of Portrait of a Learner. But before we get into the meat of our agenda, we have an announcement from Amy. Amy is one of our panelists today. She's our middle school counsellor. Mr. Stewart will join us later on. He's also our middle school counsellor, and you can see Mark there, Mark Vermeer, who's our associate principal. So you'll hear from all of us today, and later on from Ms. Johnson and a group of students. We'll keep you in suspense and introduce them to you in just a bit. All right, so Amy, some information for folks.
Yeah, thanks, Pip. This is just a little bit of information that as we work together to keep kids safe, we feel like it's our responsibility to share with you about an emerging situation that we're recently learned about. And so what we're hearing about is that some middle school and high school students are gathering in Yoyogi Park on the weekends. This involves possibly drinking, vaping, possibly some other illegal substances. We're not 100% sure that ASIJ kids are involved, but I think it would be a little naive to think that they might not be invited to something like this. When making decisions, we hope that our students use better judgment. That's certainly what we teach here. I'm sure that's certainly what you teach at home. Yet we know that peer pressure situations can be really difficult for teenagers, and that their values and that their decision-making can be swayed easily in those situations. Continuing to talk to your kids about where they're going and who they're going out with and maybe what they plan to do will be helpful in not only keeping your kids safe, but also your kids' friends safe, and our communities safe here in Tokyo as well.
Thanks, Amy. Yes, that's great. I think forewarned is forearmed, isn't it? It's good to just know and keep that information flowing so we can keep kids safe. All right, over to you, Mark.
Yeah, again, thanks, Amy, for that. I'm going to start off the day just talking a little bit about some of the background, and I'll be brief with the background that has led us to where we're at with designing for deep learning in the middle school now. But I did want to refer us back to our SDF. This document that we've put out and you've seen before in some previous Mustang Connections really helps to articulate the direction of the school. And you can see at the top, you know, we speak about our why, about knowing kids and caring for them, instilling character, courage, and compassion in our students. You can see about the how and Portrait of a Learner. We'll talk a little bit more about that today. And the ikigai of ASIJ there, the know, value, care, finding our element, making a difference, engage, learning, and leading. The two middle boxes there with cultivating culture and measuring progress, I won't talk about today, but it's the one at the bottom that I really want to draw our attention to, and in fact, to give really a great shout out to. So if we can move forward in the slide, that'd be great. It's a shout out for progress, because as a school, not just a middle school, but as a school, we've really taken on board designing for deep learning. And so if we go to the next slide, what does that actually mean for us as a division? And when you think about designing for deep learning, it's a different look at how students experience their education. It's not a look without academic standards. And so there's not a subtractive element, but there is an additional element. And that element that we've decided to incorporate consists of two main parts. The first part is the portrait of a learner competencies. And what you can see there in that interwoven DNA looking symbol is the fact that we are weaving together our academic standards with our portrait of a learner competencies. And that really is part of how a fundamental shift in how we're designing learning experiences and how students are experiencing their education is underway. And you can see on the right there, as you take a look at some of those pedagogical practices and thinking about how we leverage digital in trying to bring deep learning to life for our students. So those are the types of things I want to just talk about today and how students are experiencing them. So given that that's the direction of the school, as a middle school, one of our pieces that we've been working on is really defining what that looks like as we think about our context. With our 11 to 14-year-olds that we know so well, how do we make sure that they're really getting the value of deep learning experiences? And so in order to start that process, what we've done in the middle school is we've decided to look at what is it? And we worked on co-constructing what does deep learning look like in the middle school with our divisional teacher leaders and our faculty, our counselors, and of course, those of us here in the middle school office. And what we've come up with, still in draft form, has a number of areas that I think you as parents would be interested in seeing. So what we've done is we've taken some snippets here and we've put them together in the next slide. And what I'd like for us to do is, for just a second, is maybe grab one sentence, look at some of the terms that are highlighted, take a quick read of some things that you see there, and then in the chat, how does that make you feel? What do you think when you read about the research that's gone in? What do you think when you read about the fact that we're not only interested in students experiencing the standards, but also really fostering their curiosity? So I'll be quiet for just a few seconds. And if you don't mind, just popping into the chat, how do you feel about that when you read these things? What do you think about deep learning in the middle school as this comes from draft form to life? The final audience for this, what is deep learning in the middle school, will actually be you, parents, due to the fact that this will exist within our learning framework. You're familiar with the learning framework as a new parent, or especially as students move between grade levels. And so the learning frameworks of all four of our divisions will take on this deep learning aspect starting next year.
Thanks, Mark. Someone has helpfully pointed out that the chat isn't working. So I think I've fixed it now. Sorry about that. Have a go. If you can't pop it in the chat, then the Q&A does appear to be working. But I'm hoping that the webinar chat is now available to you to put into that feedback. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I'm hitting a chat right now. I think it says to everyone.
Yes, I can see that. So I'm hoping
great.
that it's working now. Yes.
Anyway, some questions that we have as we continue to refine this statement of what is deep learning in the middle school. In that first quote, that first snippet up at the top, you know, we've aligned ourselves with new pedagogies for deep learning and the educational experts, Full and Quinn, and just the work that they have done around deep learning. Does it Does it matter to parents? Is it important to parents to have that research element? Are some of these snippets, as you read through them, too loaded with eduspeak? What's exciting as you read through this? What's different from how education might have looked when you went to school or when we went to school?
And if the Q&A is not working for you, you should be able to click to everyone and then post your feedback. But certainly the Q&A is working if the chat is not. And as Mark says, we'd love to hear your feedback. Is the research useful, interesting for you? Too much eduspeak? I know we're notorious as teachers for speaking in a different language, but is it clear? What do you think? Thank you. It's great to see some comments coming in now. Right, how is great personal and academic success defined? Yeah, great. That's really useful feedback. How can we make that clear? People appreciating that it takes the whole student into account. Yes, so certainly middle school, the social and emotional challenges that students have, developing those unique personalities that we love to see emerging in the middle years.
The piece on practical examples, indeed, we have some actually that are in the full document. I just didn't include them here because taken out of context, they might not make as much sense. But yeah, that's a great point. What's it really look like for my student?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. You know, what we're really thinking is that this learning framework has become a bit dusty and dry. It doesn't really talk about deep learning as we are now envisaging and acting. So the beginning will describe deep learning of the book, and then later in the book we'll talk about, you know, what does that mean in each particular class as well. So what does deep learning look like in 7th grade math? What does it look like in 8th grade humanities? So I agree. That's really, I think, what parents want to know, isn't it? What are the specific examples? Actually,
that's a really great question as well. You know, just like I'll speak for myself, just like when I went to school, I was not programmed to be able to think about how my mindset might be adjusting as I went through middle school, for example. Our students don't have that experience yet either. So it's explicitly having to say to them, now's a time when we're going to really work on our collaboration skills. And this is what that looks like. Just like if you were going to teach them the fundamentals of mathematics, we have to be able to open their eyes and open their minds to being thinkers about how it is they're learning, and these new expectations, as you say. So yeah, that's very true. Thank you for that.
And thank you. This feedback is really useful. I'm going to save this chat. You know, I think it's difficult for us when we're thinking about what it is that parents might want to know about deep learning without having your feedback. So we really appreciate that. I'm trying to walk that line between giving you know, the research base, but not making it a scholarly document, making sure that it has heart and that it speaks about real middle schoolers and their experiences. So we appreciate that. All right, keep those comments coming as they come to you. And we are going to give you some specific examples of how portrait of a learner, which is a really important part of deep learning, is coming to life in our middle school. And hopefully, having had a look at this description, you'll see some of this in action. All right. So thinking about portrait of a learner, I'm just going to flash the competencies up here for you because we're going to hear from some students now. And I'm going to ask you to think about which of the competencies do you hear the students talking about? And this is conducive to the discussion about how are the expectations for students shifting. So we're going to listen to Lynn Foucault now. She's a 6th grade student. Lynn sent in this video to apply for the Sustainability Committee. The committee has students all the way from elementary school through grade 12, one in each grade level, who represent their grade in bringing our sustainability policy to life. So students were asked to send in a video saying why this was important to them. So what do we hear Lynn talk about? Which of the portrait competencies?
Hello, my name is Lynn Foucault, and this is my video submission for the 2022 Sustainability Steering Committee. Firstly, I am very excited to teach others that we can shape our future. I feel as though many people think that we can't change the world, that the world is a fixed thing that cannot be revised. But I believe that the world is very flexible and has lots of room for change. We as a committee can show others that we can change the world starting from one tiny step. This connects to the competency of collaboration and communication to teach others. Another thing I am excited to do is to work with others that I have never worked with before. I'm used to working with my 6th grade peers, so I'm excited to work with higher and lower grade levels to further enhance my grade level. Next are the challenges we might face. I feel that sometimes brainstorming can be the hardest job since we have so many different ideas. But I think that because we have so many different points of views, it may help us create a better solution than our initial idea. This is why one challenge we might face is to develop solutions that everyone can agree on. This is why critical thinking and collaboration are crucial. Another challenge we might face in this process is the work we have to do and actually completing it. Although it may be easy to choose a plan we can start working on, it will be hard to actually start the work and to complete it. This is why perseverance and grit are important. I hope that I can help my peers understand how important this sustainability project is. Thank you for listening.
Great, nice job, Lynn. Yeah, didn't she do a nice job? What did you hear? Pop in the chat. Which of the competencies did you hear her talk about? And what were some of the impressions as you hear her metacognition, her thinking about her thinking and thinking about how she can make a difference? Now I'm testing your memories, aren't you? Can you remember which of the competencies? I'll hop back in the slides so that you have, there we go, there's the cheat sheet. What did you hear her talking about? Yeah, cross-divisional collaboration. She's really excited to collaborate with elementary school students. And I can just imagine Lynn having a phenomenal conversation with a senior. She's so passionate about this topic. Yeah, lots of collaboration and critical thinking, excited to meet peers outside of her grade level. And isn't that great, you know, putting her in touch with others who are going to extend her thinking. She recognizes some of the challenges of that. Yeah, the communication and the critical thinking. Yeah, absolutely. Great, thank you. And then, you know, one of the things, oops, let's hop past that. We talked about collaboration and communication, and you can certainly hear her talking about interpersonal and team-related skills, and how she's using her voice and identity to advance humanity. Really wonderful to hear her talk about those things. Yeah, and the mindset, Amy, that's right, perseverance and grit to work through challenges. We probably also heard her talk about global citizenship. She's showing a genuine interest in human and environmental sustainability. And I popped up there some of our UN sustainable goals, number 13, climate action, and number 11, sustainable communities. These SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, fit right into our global citizenship portrait of a learner, and students are exploring these things using the knowledge and the skills they learn at ASIJ to think about how they can make the world a better place. And on that note, we're going to give you another example of how students are using deep learning and portrait of a learner in the context of also our mission. That students are inspired to be their best selves, empowered to make a difference. And recently we brought in visiting speaker Jordan Hattar. Thanks very much to the PTA who funded Jordan's visit. We so appreciate their support. Jordan came to speak with us about the refugee crisis, and he has dedicated his life to being a change maker, to making a difference. You can see his bio there. He interned with Michelle Obama, and he spent a lot of time working with refugees, trying to make a difference. This was the goal that we set out to do, was to inspire kids to be their best selves and empower them to make a difference. But let's hear from the kids what they actually learned, how much impact this made on them. Here are some pictures of Jordan's visit just before we introduce the kids. I know they're eagerly waiting there. That's great. So you can see there Jordan speaking at our assembly, a picture of him with Michelle Obama. Jordan introduced the sixth graders to a child who, Raha, who is currently in a refugee camp, who has received a scholarship to attend university. She's just finished university. So a really amazing opportunity for our kids. And I think my favorite picture is this one of our kids swarming Mr. Hattar to get autographs in their humanities notebooks because they were so impressed with him. They admired him so much that they wanted to get his autograph. So that tells you the kinds of kids that we have here at ASIJ. Ms. Johnson, Haley Johnson is our middle school teacher librarian, and a big thank you, Haley, for your work with Mr. Hattar. Haley coordinated his schedule and looked after him throughout the day. And Haley has with her Nina, who's in grade 6, who I think is going to speak to us in just a minute. And then we see Rianoske in grade 8, and I think we have Kay. There's Kay, great, in grade 7. So we're eager to hear from you all. What kind of impact did Mr. Hattar have on you? What do you think, Nina?
I think he greatly influenced everyone, I guess, especially the fact that he worked all his life to helping other people, and it kind of showed us that we could do that as well. And I guess it was so empowering. It felt good talking to him. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Nina. That's great. If you have any questions, parents on the call, we encourage you to pop them in the chat box. And let's hear from somebody else, maybe from Kay or Rianoske. What would you like to share with us? Yeah.
Jordan Hattar really talked about mindset, having a positive mindset, even though he might have gone through a hard time, particularly about when he fundraised money when he was in 8th grade, and he gave the money to charity. However, it went to waste. And so normally people who have a terrible mindset would probably give up, but he kept this positive mindset and kept going on. And after that, he made his own organization where he is helping out refugees all across the world. And particularly, he talked about how communicating with the refugees was the most important thing about what they want. And instead of just giving them money and then telling someone to just buy random stuff. And he also talked about how many countries are just putting money into refugees, but they're not knowing what that money is going to. And so he really talked about that the most important thing was communication with the refugees.
Yeah, that's great. And Kay, you also talked about a lesson that you learned from him about not giving up. What was
Yeah.
it that he said that really made that impact on you?
So he talked about he tried to apply for the White House intern many times, and he actually failed 7 times in a row. However, in the 8th time, he successfully got got accepted. And he related to one quote from his favorite book. That one quote was, "The secret of life, though, is to fall 7 times and get up 8 times." And I think that was pretty impactful how because he had a positive mindset, he got the job. And I think it was pretty influential to many people here in ASIJ.
Yeah, awesome, wonderful. Thanks so much. Yeah, and Rianoske, what impact did you from Mr. Hattar's talk?
He taught us that people overlook small contributions, and he believes that small contributions leads to greater success. So like without small contributions, there'll be no success. And in order this to happen, people need to collaborate and care each other. And I also believe that these cordial behaviors not only impact people to help refugees, but to actually act with kindness and compassion in their daily lives. And I thought that following your passion will always work if you actually put hard work into it. And without hard work, nothing can be achieved. And if your passion is to help someone, then people will actually notice your work and will be willing to help you.
Yeah, absolutely, Rianoske. I think those are such important lessons to learn. And he had some really good examples, didn't he? What was it that he talked about when they were trying to find better homes for the people in the refugee camps? Do you remember what he said about the caravans that was so impactful to all of us?
Yes, so he raised a fund within his college community
Yeah.
to create 2 housings for the refugees. And this is a great example for small contributions lead to greater success.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. I think that's so amazing, isn't it? Because at first he felt a little deflated because they'd only raised enough money for 2 caravans. But then he saw the people's reaction to those caravans, and then there was another group who then were inspired by him, right, and gave even more caravans to the homeless people in the refugee camp.
Yeah, so like other were inspired by him and wanted to create difference and influence others to help people just like he did.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing, isn't it? The impact that that one person can make. That's amazing. Great. Thank you so much, students, for joining us. I'm just scanning the chat to see if there are any questions from our parents, but I think the funds from the PTA went to good use, bringing Mr. Hattar to come and to speak to our young people. Clearly, he has inspired our community. Great. Well, thank you. We'll let all of you head back to class. We'll give you a virtual round of applause. Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson, for organising the kids there, and we appreciate you sharing your thoughts. Okay, bye for now. Thank you. All right, good job, kids. Lovely to hear their thoughts. And I think, this is what it's all about. When we see the portrait of a learner in action, and we hear kids talking about the competencies that they're going to use, not just in middle school, but in high school, university, and onwards into their lives, these skills they're going to be able to take with them. Wonderful. Interested to hear in the chat what sort of portrait competencies you heard kids talk about. Certainly, we could hear again a lot more about global citizenship. our students demonstrating commitment to human equity. We could hear their empathy and compassion. We could hear students thinking about how to solve complex, ambiguous problems. How to solve the issues in a refugee camp. Sometimes those sorts of problems can seem so overwhelming. But what a great way to engage kids with global issues. Right. So, Mark, moving on to something a little different now.
Yeah, I just think that, that's a really great example of an incredibly powerful student experience. And it's one part of the puzzle, right? We have as I mentioned at the beginning of our webinar, we have the SDF that sort of sets that Northern Star, that direction of the school. And then as divisions across the school, we work to try to identify how we bring that to life. And some of those ways are with incredible student experiences like that. There's another piece as well that, tuning into a webinar to hear about Jordan Hattar or something like that is one way for you as parents to engage. But our primary way of engaging with you as parents and how your students are learning is through reporting out. And so you're probably familiar with some of the reporting changes that we've made. You just received report cards here this week. And as you remember, we removed the ATLs, and a report card maybe looks like this for a grade 6 humanities student, with down below a teacher comment based upon the standards and on portrait competencies. And one of the other things that is definitely a work in progress, but one of the other things that we're trialing this year is how do we bring that student voice and agency and metacognitive ability into their reports so that students are actually talking about their learning with the intended audience of the report, you, the parent. And so when you think about going through reports, it's not just about hearing how the teachers are feeling about how your students' progress is being made, but also about getting that piece from students. And it makes for really fantastic conversation. So I've had the pleasure of reading all of the reports here this past week, and I've just pulled out a couple of examples of those student quotes that have gone into reports. And one of the things that I'm really very proud of our students is this is not something that they have a whole lot of experience with, right? We just talked about the idea that students will need to know the expectation of learning how to not only learn content, but also competency, how to build those skills that they take with them through life. Giving feedback on their own learning is not something our students have a whole lot of experience with yet. And so we've pulled out just a couple. These two are really just about the developing skills. So you can see the student in the top quote there says, they don't really like collaboration. Maybe they're the type of student that is more efficient and gets work done on their own, but they go on to reflect that it really helps their learning, right? And that collaboration, as they exercise that muscle and build that skill, actually becomes something really that they do well. And you can see student pride coming through, right? They're proud that they've actually developed that skill. They've kind of gone outside their comfort zone and built that skill that is obviously very necessary in today's day and age. Having a science background, I really like the second comment there too. Here's a student that really growing their critical thinking, testing and evaluating in diverse settings, right? That transfer of knowledge to be able to find out the effectiveness and thinking about how their learning is really applicable. In the next slide, there's a couple of quotes that really describe the deepening of the learning, right? Not only are these students going through and doing what's happening in class, but in the first one, the student here is they're coming out with the reflection of, I know who I am, and I can reflect that in my writing honestly. And now that's taken me to not only be able to reflect that, but now I feel like I can think about other people in the world. What an important concept. Amazing, right? The last one there really puts together, I've grown in my creativity. because when I first started trying to design questions, they were too vague. And now as I dig deeper, right, I'm able to connect things across the disciplines, happenings not only now, but also in the past and in the present. So really a fantastic look at student reflection that's coming in your report cards. And that's, again, a main way that we communicate with you home. I don't know if we just can give a thumbs up or put a hand up. How many people, as they read through the report cards this past week, saw some of your own student reflection, and what kind of conversations outside of the standards and what the teacher had to say, what kind of conversations did those student reflections start at home? Anyone have any experience with that?
You know, I think one of the things that we've been talking a lot about at school as well is the role of the teacher. We are encouraging the metacognition, we're encouraging the student voice, and the teachers are there to act as mentors, to act as guides and thought partners, and also to test student thinking. You know, it would be very easy for a child to say, I'm the most awesome collaborator ever. But how does the teacher perhaps ask the student to give evidence of that, or think more deeply about that, to look at the progressions in the portrait competencies and to be able to give examples. And that's really pushing the children's thinking and really validating when students are accurate self-assessors, and, you know, making sure that those are the pieces that we capture on the report card. So, you know, sometimes report cards can seem a bit impersonal to students, but when they see their voices reflected there, and when they know what they think matters, and when they make an accurate self-assessment, knowing that they're on track and what their goal is, can be really powerful for kids as learners.
Yeah, I see a couple of responses that say that they did see some student feedback, some student reflection in the report, and that the students were happy to see that included. You know, there's no doubt, as our teachers have evolved the process of gathering that feedback, students have taken it more and more seriously. Students have really used not only the feedback itself, but the process of giving the feedback to kind of grow and to think about how it is their learning experience is really impacting them. So thank you for that.
Yeah, great. I mean, really, if a child can't identify what they need to work on, the chances of them making progress on that goal are very slim. So I think this is such an important work with our young people. If we don't take them with us on the journey, they'll feel like school happens to them rather than them being able to have an impact on their learning in such an important way. So it's been really fun to share some of this with you. And we'll open up now for sort of some more general Q&A, but keep those questions and comments coming. We did have a question submitted on the form we shared on something totally different on the trips. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and if you have other things you'd like to ask us, pop them in the Q&A and we'll be happy to chat with you. If time is important to you, we've finished the sort of formal presentation, but we're going to talk some Q&A now. So the question we had was about the grade 7 trip to Hiroshima. We have a letter coming out to parents next week about the trip. It will be the first overnight trip in some time. So I think we're all sort of going back to those routines and making sure that we know what's going on, right? So students, the question is about how are students getting to Hiroshima? Students travel from Shinagawa on the Shinkansen and then take a bus from the station in Hiroshima to their hotel. We stay at a Prince Hotel that has a dock, and so then they can ride the ferry to Miyajima, return. On the way home, they bus back to the Shinkansen station in Hiroshima. They stop at Himeji Castle on the way home and visit the castle there before coming back to Shinagawa. So for those of you with 7th graders, you know, your students have studied feudal Japan and the feudal warlords. So the Himeji Castle is wonderful for kids to explore as they imagine what life in those times would have been like. Then moving into looking at the pre-war theatre leading up to World War II, and then looking at the events that led to the dropping of the bomb on Hiroshima. So this is a really impactful trip for students. The question also about supervision, the students and accommodation. The students stay at the Prince Hotel. We take over several floors. There is a floor for male students, a floor for female students. We have 16 faculty chaperones, including Mr. Stewart will attend, I will attend. Our nurse will attend, all of the advisors will go with the students, and a number of specialist teachers as well. So those are the chaperones on the trip. As I say, there'll be an information letter coming out next week, but if there's anything I can answer now, I would be happy to speak to that. Or any other comments you might have? Or questions? When will be the trip? It's April the 10th, she says, looking at her calendar here, just to double check that. Yes, April 10th through 12th. They leave on Monday morning and come back Wednesday the 12th in the afternoon. Leaving, as I say, from Shinagawa station. So kids meet at the station, meet their advisors at the station and go from there. We're also working on a trip for grade 8 students, trying to work around our very complex calendar here at ASIJ, but we're hopeful to have some news to share with you about that. Grade 6, of course, went to Lake Sai at the beginning of the year, and they've also been to the Disaster Preparedness Centre. And then we're hoping to have another day trip for the 6th grade later in the year as well. A question about developing collaborations outside the classroom with the greater school environment. Yes, those things are really valuable. We absolutely agree. We do collaborate with Nogawa Park. Students often go into the park and look at forestry and water quality and that sort of thing, and collaborations with the Japan Centre as well. One of the things that we've really been working on in recent times is re-establishing some of those partnerships with the community that quite frankly lapsed during COVID because of the safety protocols. So our partnerships team, Ryosuke Suzuki, the directors of the Japan Centre, they've been partnering with our teachers to do just that. The Disaster Preparedness Centre was a good example of that. And as we look at other things, we'll certainly keep you abreast. I think, as you noted with the connection with Jordan Hattar, anytime kids can really see how their learning makes a difference in the world, where they can get out in the community and partner with others is so important. Well, we have a Mustang bulletin coming up on Friday. If you do think of anything else you'd like to know, we always love to hear. What would you like to hear about in the Mustang bulletin? What would you like to hear about at our next Mustang Connections, so we can make these really interesting and relevant for you. We really appreciate your feedback and your comments today. So today isn't the only opportunity for questions or to give us some feedback. So all of us here on the call would love to hear from you. Don't hesitate to reach out with your questions.
That was a really a good point about Jordan Hattar and how his success really was part of listening to what the refugees needed rather than imagining what they needed. And in a similar vein, as we put together these chances for parents to interact, it's just really important to understand what the parental needs might be. So just to reiterate what Pip said, please let us know we're happy to talk about a lot of the great things that are happening here at the school. And if we want to get it right, please let us know what your needs might be.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. We appreciate you joining us today, and we'll sign off and go and see what our middle schoolers are up to. It's their lunchtime right now. So we'll say goodbye for now, and thank you for joining us.